If you take insurance, then you know about revenue cycle management already. This industry keeps evolving. You can bring your RCM in-house, you can outsource it, or you can mix and match them. Not sure which one to choose? Thinking about changing what you're doing now? Well, my guest today is going to break down each option to help us out. This is what he does all day long. I'm Carl White, principal at Market Advisory Group, which is a healthcare marketing agency, and I'm also the host of Practice Care. The mission for both is the same, and that's to help private practice owners stay private. It's usually what they want anyway, but care is better when the providers of care own the practice, whether it's one or many, because all the decisions are made by the same group of people who put patient care first, whether it's clinical decisions, business decisions, whatever they may be. I just think it's best when it's the providers of care making them. My guest today is Vinny Sankaran. Vinny brings over 15 years of experience in operations, financial analysis, strategy, growth, corporate development, strategic planning, and marketing. At Medical Billing Wholesalers, he's involved in applying his experience to optimize revenue cycle process flows to improve their clients' profitability and performance, and is a returning guest to Practice Care. Vinny, thanks for coming back.
Thank you for calling me and inviting me. Thank you. It's
Yes,
always a pleasure.
these are good episodes. This is a whole world that I can tell you I learn a lot with every one of our episodes, so I like it too. We're going to be talking about the different ways in which you can do RCM in your practice, but I want to start with those who haven't heard you before. Tell us a bit more about you, about Medical Billing Wholesalers. Help us get to know you a bit.
Perfect. So, MBW, as I tell people, we're the BMW of medical billing. We've been in medical billing for over 15 years, and we help practices, mostly practices, some hospitals, but I would say majority practices across the country with their RCM needs. And we'll get more into that as we speak today. I'm also on the board of HPMA and NSDHBC. HPMA is more billing companies, almost all RCM companies, what they need, different kind of vendors. The NSDHBC is more healthcare business consultants, and they help practices with like consulting, and it could be anything. It could be marketing, like what you do, Carl. It could be taxes. It could be RCM. It could be leasing, staffing.
So all sorts of things. Yes, we're both
pretty
members.
much,
pretty much cover the whole gamut. Yeah.
That's kind of what we do. So revenue cycle management for small practices, medium-sized, large ones, some hospitals. That's pretty much what we do.
Any particular specialties or kind of anybody or
some more than others? Specialties. Let me talk about like the top 5, 6 that we do. Mental health is kind of one of the big ones because that has expanded a lot after Affordable Care Act. So everything in mental health, that includes just regular therapy, ABA, detox, substance abuse, so anything in behavioral health. The other one is urgent care and ambulatory surgery, also both growing areas, right? The last 10, 15 years has grown a lot. And apart from that, I would say ortho, pain, gastro, anesthesiology, some more specialties. But we also have some PTs and primary care. Yeah, can't do everything really well, so we take about 5, 6, and we kind of do them well.
Sure. Okay, good. All right, so let's get into it. There's different ways to, I say, execute RCM in your practice. As you've said, you can bring it all in-house, you can outsource it completely, you can mix and match, just so we make sure that we're all thinking about these the same way. Sometimes there's nuances. Just describe each one of them.
Perfect. Let's start with the in-house, right? So this is something that's been going on for a long, long time, but it's changed in the last, let's say, 10, 15 years after EMR is more important with all the regulations, right? So what happened was there was a doctor practice, 1 doctor, 5 doctor, 10 doctors didn't make a difference. They would have a practice manager or an office manager, and they would do the revenue cycle in-house, right? So when I say everything in-house, so they would do the verification of benefits, after scheduling the appointments, they do prior authorizations if they need, submitting the claims, coding, working on rejections, there's payment posting, there's working the denials, there's accounts receivable follow-up, fighting with the insurance companies, appeals, patient statements, everything, patient calls, everything in-house, right? And that was okay before. But now with all the regulations and also how the insurance companies are set up and how they deny, delay, right? It's not feasible for most practices to kind of do it in-house because it doesn't pay. It's tough to find the right people. And also with all the changing regulations, are they going to focus on patient care or be busy with the regulations and the changes that the insurance companies put on them or the government puts on them? So most, I would say, practices have moved to either outsourcing it to a billing company such as us, or I'll talk about the hybrid in just a minute. So
can I just ask a question?
Yeah, go on. Sure.
On in-house, I'm just from the description, it sounds like if you have, I don't know, even if you're a small practice, that just sounds like a full-time job, like full-time hours, just to keep up with all that
Yes.
and following up. Maybe not
Correct.
exactly, but and it makes sense that if you're a smaller practice, like a full-time headcount is a real cost, right? And so
Yes.
whether it fits
Uh,
or it's worth it, but it doesn't sound like you know, a 7 hour a week. I don't, you know what I mean? Like it sounds like it's
no,
just there's real
absolutely.
skill, there's real time.
Absolutely. Just
Yeah.
to add to that, Carl, so it's not one person full time based on the practice because there are different skill sets, right? So let me give you an
Mm.
example. Because we have a few hundred people doing different parts, the person who is a coder does not necessarily be a good person to talk to a patient or do an AR. So we have different people
Yeah, fair
doing it. So
enough.
even if it's a small practice, so it's not like one person can handle all of it. It's
Mhm.
very tough. They might be good with, let's say, charge entry or payment posting, but calling an insurance company might not be the skill set,
Fair
or
enough.
doing eligibility might not be, or patient. So it's not a one person thing. We're talking about a team.
Hmm.
And the two things, one is it's tough to find the right people to come to your office and say that's one. Expense, like you said, very important. And if you, let's say, hire three people, you might not have work for all three people. Then what do you do?
Mm-hmm.
So, and then you get distracted by patients. Sometimes you want to call the insurance company, a patient comes in, so you hang up, and now you are another 20-minute hold with the insurance company. So,
This is
doing
the
it in
thing.
house has been a
Yeah.
big, big problem for most practices, I would say. Some
Okay.
very large practices have some RCM team in house, and we'll talk about the hybrid because
Fair
they might
enough.
have part of the RCM team, but not all of it. And
Right.
we'll come to
Okay. I
that.
didn't mean to distract, but okay. So
No, no,
we covered
absolutely.
in-house. So outsourcing, I think you were going to next.
Correct. So 15 years ago or 20 years ago, I would say maybe 20, 30% of the practices outsource. Now I would say it's flipped. Maybe 10, 15% don't outsource, at least part of it, if not
Hmm.
all of it. So
Hmm.
that's how the industry has changed.
Wow.
So there are a lot of companies that do revenue cycle management. Some are very local. I would say most of them are local and
Hmm.
very specialized. So they might do one or two specialties. And also don't forget there are a lot of EMR practice management systems. So they might be only good with this specialty, this EMR practice management we
Yeah.
know how to do. And that becomes the problem, right? And that's good. That's what they do, this niche. See, in our case, because we are a bigger company, we have 300 plus employees, we have different teams that do
Hmm.
different things really well. So, right, we have a team for coding, we have a team for payment posting, and so on. But
Hmm.
we also work on different specialties. So we end up working with different EMRs, practice management system, which actually helps because we don't tell the doctor what to use. Whatever the practice uses, we kind of take it from there.
Hmm.
All the notes are in the system, and it's kind of seamless to just take over and start. So
Okay.
that's the
That's
outsource model.
outsourcing. Yeah.
Right. And that's the most common model. So
Hmm.
basically, a doctors, we talk to the doctor practice and say, we would do A, B, and C and
Hmm.
take out your full revenue cycle and you charge you a percentage of what is collected. And that's usually how it's
Pretty
done. There are
common.
one or
Yeah.
two nuances, like in New York, they don't like you to charge a percentage if it touches Medicare, Medicaid. There's some special
Fair
rules for
enough.
different states, but mostly a percentage of what is collected is how the billing company charge. That's the outsource model.
Okay. And then hybrid, like, I'm hearing these, they sound very
Perfect.
different. It sounds like the secret there is figuring out what to keep inside and what to, so take us through the variety of
Yes.
hybrids, I guess.
The hybrid has become pretty popular, I would say, last few years, especially after COVID. So what happened is, let's say the doctor has a couple of people in their office. They do a few different things, but they also do RCM because they used to be billers before, but they have only so much time. So they can focus on the client relation, which is the patients, right? That's the most important thing.
Hmm.
And maybe handle some higher level RCM stuff. And the others, somebody like us can do. So what we do is, because we don't do the full revenue cycle, we cannot charge them a percentage because then you're touching part of it, we're touching part of it. So we flip to something called the per person per month, or the FTE model, full time equivalent model.
Okay.
So we charge them a percentage, a person per month FTE model. So that's
How do you
an
figure
hourly
out,
cost.
how does a
Mhm.
practice figure out what to keep in-house versus what to outsource?
G- Great question. Great question. So let's back it up, right? Before, when we start talking to a practice, we first tell them, uh, great, we know this is the doctor. We ask them how many doctors, what EMR practice management do you use, what's the specialty? Great. Locations, how many locations, how many doctors? Great. But we do something called the pre-practice analysis. So we sign a business associate agreement for HIPAA compliance, and we do an in-depth practice analysis. So this tells us charges for those payments for the last 6 months to a year based on how big the practice is, your top codes that you bill, your top denials that you've had, where are the problem areas, if any, how much money do you have in open AR? And we kind of go through everything like an observation report and see, hey, these are the bottlenecks. And I think we can solve for this in the next month and a half, 2 months based on it. And right now, I'm just picking a number. Let's say the practice collects 100,000 a month. Based on what we see, maybe we can increase it to 105, 110 in the next 2 months. And that's great, right? Because the extra 10,000 could be 40, 30, 50% of their profits. So they pay us, but we can increase the revenue. It's a win-win for both of us. So that's kind of how we do. So when we do the practice analysis, we can go through and say, this is where the need is. Who do you have on staff? How would you like to use them? Maybe move them to higher level stuff, because if they're on the phone call with the insurance company for 3 hours a day, that's not good use of the time. Let's move them more to the patient side, or contract negotiation, anything like that. And then we can do the hybrid model and take over some of the staffs, and help them out. That's kind of how we would have the conversation.
So is there like a preferred way of doing it, or it really depends on the analysis? Like,
it depends on the analysis and also what they would like. So they might have a couple of employees who've been there for many, many years, and that's not something they want to move, but they might be able to promote them, give them a more meaningful role, and make them maybe managers and be a liaison between the patients and the practice, and the liaison between us as an RCM company and the doctor, right?
okay.
So that way their role kind of evolves and to a more meaningful role, or actually like a promotion kind of stuff. So, and they can, do higher level stuff and not waste time waiting on hold, or faxing something to the insurance company, smaller things like that, administrative things. That's something we could take over.
So maybe one way to think about it is the patient-facing parts of revenue cycle management keep in-house, and the purely administrative stuff, where you're sort of dealing with the insurance company or paperwork or a computer screen, think about outsourcing that.
That's a great way to start. I would start with that, because that's a sensitive thing, right? Your patients are somebody you have a relationship. If you focus on them, it's much better. One is you can collect whatever is owed by the patient easier, because you have a relationship. And with high deductible plans, that's become very important nowadays. So I would focus more on that in the practice as opposed to doing it outside. You can do it. We do it for some of our clients, but that's what I would tell them. Keep it, and maybe some really high level stuff. So let's say if it's a surgery practice and they have a couple of surgeries that are $20,000, $30,000 kind of claims, maybe those high level stuff they could handle. Let's say it's a PT practice or something like arbitration, they're dealing with attorneys. It's easier if it's done in-house. So if they can, we could do that too. But those are the high level stuff I would keep in-house. The rest I kind of outsource to a company such as us. That way it's easier. It's a win-win for both of us. And that's worked out pretty well over the years.
Yeah. Do you see, so if we think of outsourcing and hybrid as kind of sort of cousins of each other, do you see much movement, like practices switching from one to the other, or changing the hybrid? Like, it'd be lovely to set it and forget it forever, but life doesn't really work that way. So
that is true.
Yeah.
And we've seen that many times, Carl. Great question. So what happens is we do a practice analysis for a practice, and that might not be the right time. It's free. Like we said, we sign the BA, then we do and they can hold on to it and decide how they would like to proceed. And we give the practice choice. Okay, maybe you're not sure right now. Here are references, talk to them. But what we can do is, I do see a lot of work that you need in AR, or let's say verification of benefits. Let's start with 2 people on the practice. Let's see how it goes for 3 months, see the communication, see the reports that we give, see the impact we have made in your AR, or because this is outstanding money. Then after 3 months, we can decide and say, okay, you guys are great. You've used 2 people for 3 months and 3 people for 3 months, and we see the impact. It makes sense. Rather than move our people for this, can you guys take on either 2 or 3 more people and still the FTE model? That's an option. Or can you take everything and we switch to the full RCM at a percentage model? I've seen it happen both ways.
Okay.
And I usually tell people start slow, especially if they've had a bad experience before and they're not really sure. Start slow. So, and we can start and say, hey, you don't have to sign a long-term agreement. Maybe 60 days out. So that way, in case you change your mind, let us know. That way they don't feel, that they're signing a long-term agreement and they're not sure. So please give it a shot, especially for things like coding. We would do a free pilot, show you how we can do it, things like that. Like the free practice analysis, it's good for us, it's good for the practice. The coding is another thing that they can test and see how it works. Are they happy with the coding? Things like that.
Do you do you have a recommendation of where somebody should start? Like if they're doing it some way and they're not happy with how it's going. Um,
I think the audit is the perfect thing, right? Sign the BA, you have nothing to lose, you're not committed to anything, you're not making any payment. All we talk is we talk to them, get some information from them,
mhm,
sign the BA, get the logins for literally a day, download some reports, put them together because the EMRs have a lot of reports, but not what we want. So we have to do, so it takes about 2 days. So it's a free practice analysis. We'll go over that with you, then sit on it. There's no obligation to sign us or anybody else. So
mhm.
think about it. It's useful information. I don't see any downside. So that's how we
That's
tell
how
the
you guys
clients,
do
and
it.
they really like it.
So get an
Perfect.
assessment is really,
Get an assessment, yes, and it's
yeah.
free. And a lot of other people do that. They might call it different things, but we
Mhm.
call it the free practice analysis. Somebody
Sure.
might call it a practice audit or health of the practice, same thing. So a lot
Mhm.
of people do it for free, and some
Yeah.
of them actually charge. So that's something you should ask before they do the analysis.
Right. And the trigger, I guess, is we're not collecting enough of what we think we should be, or we're
Mhm.
getting it all, but we're not getting it fast enough. These are the sorts of things where would you say a practice should say, we should have a look at this because
Totally.
we ought to be collecting
Absolutely.
more, or we're getting it all, but man, it's taken forever.
100%. Though both of them are usually true with almost all practices. I've seen, I
Really?
don't know, hundreds of practices. The delay has become a little better with, electronic payments and stuff. It used to take a lot more, right? 30, 45, 60 days.
Mhm.
Regular payments. I'm not talking about the ones that get denied and you got to worry, you can
Right.
appeal.
Right.
I'm talking about the regular ones. So that's become better, especially with
Mm.
Medicare.
Hmm.
And a few other insurance companies. So it used to take 45, now we're talking 7 to 10 days, sometimes 21 days. So not that bad,
Hmm.
but there are denials. There are going to be delays, there are going to be denials. Now, how do you handle that is the health of the practice, right? Is it on the front end? What can you do to avoid it? Are you collecting money that the patients owe? Not only the co-pays and deductibles, but also anything that they had from the previous visit, things like that. If you're not on top of that, that's the patient chunk. Used to be 2, 3, 5% of the practice, and doctors didn't care that much. Not so much nowadays, right? So with the high deductible plans, it could be 15, 20, 25% of the practice. So you can't just write that off. It doesn't work that way, right? So that's one side. The other side is you want to do everything you can from the insurance company side so that you can fight, and because you're going to, claims are going to get denied because that's in their plan. They don't agree, but it happens every day. We see it every few months. It's a new thing by different insurance companies to delay and deny. And they're like, hey, some 10%, 20%, 30% of the people are not going to follow up. And then we can hit them with timely filing or some other technicality so we don't have to pay them, or we can drag it for another 3 months. So that's their strategy. And we have to be vigilant and fight to get the money that is rightfully owed to the practice.
It's kind of a side comment, but I don't think I'd be
Yes.
able to go to work every day if that was my charge. Hey, we've got to, slow payment down. That is legitimate payment. I mean, yes, you deny something, I guess, if there's really a question or there's really data. I don't exactly know what, but it's hard for me to believe that every denial and every delay is authentic, we'll say. Um, you know more about
It
this
is
than I
not.
don't think. Yeah, right. It is not. So um, it is not. So yeah, I guess so what's a good, I don't know, healthy percentage if it used to be 2, 3, 5%, however many years ago of delays or denials? What's considered healthy today, even though it's not really healthy? It's you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
I ask because like, so listeners, you're thinking I don't know, make it up. You're at 20%. You've just sort of come to accept that as normal. I want to hear what Vinny has to say because if Vinny's going to say 12 to 15%, well, then you might want to have a look at this.
I would say your denial should be under 5%, but there are a lot
Okay.
of variables for that. So we will look at two different things, right? One is the denials. The other one is your old AR. If your AR over 120 is above 5%, we definitely had to look at it and see why. And there are some cases that it makes sense. So let's say if you're sending a lot of stuff to arbitration and attorneys are involved, workers' comp, no, we know those take time. So that is
Hmm.
the. But let's say your practice doesn't have any of that and your AR over 120 is, I don't know,
120 days.
20%. I've seen 50, I've seen 40, I've seen 80%. It's all over the place, right? Some part is justified, but not that high, right? MGMA has different standards. They want to keep it low. So we like 5 to 7. Sometimes it's really tough to get there, but only when we look at it, we know there's some old stuff from like 5 years ago that's still sitting in AR, making your AR look bad. We kind of go and clean it up. Payments have not been pushed to the right patient, right visit. That's the cleanup kind of be what to do. Credit balance is what we call it. So there's a lot of things that can be done. That's why we say the practice analysis is more a high level stuff, but it gives a lot of visibility. You know, okay, this is where to start. That's not end all, but at least we know, okay, this is what we see. We see some bottlenecks that we can look into in more detail and then diagnose and make, recommend a solution and work on it. It's
Yeah.
not a 1 day fix, right? So
No,
it takes a few months. Yeah.
and all right. So if you should be collecting the vast majority of what you're owed within a week or so, I mean, that sounds pretty good.
Call it 15 to 20 days just to be. The Medicare is about a week to 10 days. The rest are more like 15, 20 days, but within the month. So if you see a patient today is 21st, we should be able to collect it by June 15th. At least we
Okay.
should, at least the majority of it. That's the
Yeah.
plan. And we want to submit the claims also. You don't want to sit on the claims. You see the patient today, the claim should be out by tomorrow. Maybe even sooner if you can. By tomorrow is a good number.
Yeah, and since cash flow is the lifeblood of any business,
Absolutely.
whether a medical, dental practice or otherwise, yeah, this is a big deal. We've covered a fair amount of ground here. Is there anything you think we should have touched on, but we just haven't gotten to yet?
We just say explore, talk to people. You have, doctors always talk to other doctors or other practices, see what's worked. There are a lot of organizations for that. So the first thing is talk to people, do an assessment, like we call it the practice analysis. They don't have anything to lose. It's a good thing. They might have seen those reports before, but I think it's a great starting point, and they should go from there. If everything is good in their practice, awesome.
Yeah.
It's good. At least that's good to know. Hey, everything is good. Great. I'll look at it another 6 months or a year. And if it's not, hey, what can we do to fix that and increase our bottom line by 2%, 5%? That makes a big difference.
Yeah, we've had other episodes, you as a guest and a few others as well that have talked about, what should you just have at your fingertips when it comes to, if you think about it as RCM, it sounds boring, but if you think about it as cash flow, it sounds very important. And so, really, I mean, just a few metrics at your fingertips of, what percentage of our money are we collecting within 30 days? Maybe that's a good one to start. And if it gets to be whatever the benchmark is not, is, and you're not there, you got to have a look at this one way or the other. And that's when you can start asking around, talk to folks like, like you guys and or others around, whatever, because it's your cash, you've earned it. Don't be shy about collecting it. Yeah. Where can someone start? I mean, so, the setup is we've caught their attention in this episode. It's a big topic though. It's not a quick change from whatever it is they're doing today to some other way. And they like the idea, but they're just sort of stuck at the starting line because they don't know where to start. So where would you recommend somebody start?
2, 3 options. One is if they have an expert biller in their office, they can start there. Or if they're outsourcing already to their billing company, see if they get the reports that they should be getting weekly, monthly reports. If they don't, that's something they can ask for. If they're still not getting, I would be happy to talk to somebody and say, hey, what can we do for them and do the practice analysis. And there are other companies out there. So I would definitely ask.
Yeah. It's a good point. Like diagnose the situation, just like you do
Yes.
Dr. X with any new patient who walks in. Treat yourself as a patient and dig and what's going on. Makes a lot of sense. Well, good. Vinny, thanks for coming back. You just did a personal relocation, so I'm glad that we caught you in the midst of a move.
Yes.
And you'll be glad that when that's behind you. But thanks for coming on back on Practice Care and helping us understand this.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Carl. Always a pleasure. Thank you.
Same. And we've got your contact info, which we're going to go into the show notes of this episode. Anybody who wants to contact you, they now have yet another way to do it. 2 quick points before we wrap up. First, please subscribe to Practice Care if you haven't done it already. Practice Care is one word, easy to find. We're everywhere, any player Just subscribe because we do a new episode every week, and that's the easiest way to stay up to date. And also, if you're like Vinny or us and you serve private practice owners, or if you're a private practice owner yourself, either way, you've got some experience on the business side of private practice you think your colleagues or your peers would benefit from, we want you to come on Practice Care and tell everybody about it. So in the show notes for Vinny's episode and each and every episode, there's a link. It's super easy and quick. Just tell us what's on your mind, and we will get you scheduled ASAP. Thanks very much, and until next time.